I know that I'm going to get dogpiled for this. And I know that it's going to be from a fan base that I have championed, that I have been very sympathetic towards, and that I still am very much a part of. But I know, within my heart of hearts, that it is too late to restore the SnyderVerse. By the way, guys, if you're wanting to see some exclusive Channel Pup content, get your name in the credits of every video, even a shout out and maybe some exclusive merch, then join the Cult of Pup today and become a Poible. And you can do so via the Patreon link in the description below. Your support means the world to me, and honestly, it helps me get these videos out there. Thank you. Now let's be real here, us Snyder fans have always needed a miracle. Worse yet, we needed two miracles, because we got our first miracle with the Snyder Cut of Justice League actually being released. Like, what were actually the odds of that getting released to us? And you know what? We took home an unforgettable experience from that. I'm speaking as someone who is a huge fan of Man of Steel, Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, and Zack Snyder's Justice League. I think they are the absolute best of what the DC Extended Universe has to offer. I acknowledge that they're not for everyone, but I think they are fantastic. And I will always defend these movies. There's a lot of bad faith criticism going around, there's a lot of flippancy going around, and I think Snyder fans get dragged through the mud for it as well. A lot of us all just want to see a continuation of this film universe without actually even shutting down what DC are currently doing right now. Yeah, there are some crazies among the bunch that want to drag every other filmmaker through the mud, but I've always insisted that that's a very vocal minority. And listen, it would make me so happy if I could just wake up one morning and see that Zack Snyder's Justice League 2 has been announced. They are doing a sequel to it with Henry Cavill, Ben Affleck, everything we've wanted to see. But I don't think that's going to happen, and I don't think that can happen. Say Zack Snyder returns to the director's chair tomorrow. The landscape of the DC Extended Universe is already very different from how he left it. With a major universe reboot going on with this upcoming Flash movie, Michael Keaton is now the core Batman. Like, the plans for the DC Extended Universe are already well underway, but okay, let's divorce it from that. Let's just say that Zack Snyder's getting his own mini pocket universe. It's an alternative thing. And he's gonna make his Nightmare sequel, which has Batman, the Flash, Mirror, the Joker, Deathstroke, Cyborg. So obviously, Ray Fisher's departed the universe, Ben Affleck has departed the universe. But money talks. Like, that's just common sense, and if you have the right variables in place, if Zack Snyder's directing the film, I have every faith that they would return to the project, as they did for the little extra scenes that were filmed for Zack Snyder's Justice League. So yeah, I do think money talks when it comes to Ben Affleck and Ray Fisher. And if not, there are still ways that they can be accommodated. But then there's Ezra Miller and Amber Heard. With Amber Heard, we had probably one of the biggest, most high-profile trials we've seen in quite a while. The Depp v. Heard defamation trial. This thing was inescapable, and it was so weird how it was treated as like this TV event when what's actually going on is a trial regarding domestic abuse. And obviously Amber Heard lost that, but even if we're taking like the overall result out of the equation from what I saw there, the very best case scenario for Amber Heard was that it was mutually abusive. But mutual abuse is still abuse. And if you are mutually abusive, but then you go to the press talking about how you're a victim, you're still kind of in the wrong there. The world knows about it now, and if people weren't campaigning for her to be recast as Mirror before, they're certainly campaigning against her in the role now. And if we got a Zack Snyder's Justice League 2 Nightmare with Mirror as a main part of the lineup, you would definitely need a new actor in that role. Then we have Ezra Miller as the Flash, who just seems to be on a rampage lately. Someone who clearly has major aggression issues, thinks it's completely okay to threaten people, and now we've even got allegations of grooming? You can't have that guy playing a superhero. Ideally, you can't have him acting in anything right now, not while these allegations aren't cleared. So Zack Snyder would have to come back to his director's chair with a lot of the cast now departed that franchise, but also two cast members that you can't really justify returning. So if you're now having to recast people left, right, and center, is it still really Zack Snyder's vision? Is there really much point in him returning? And you gotta look at it from his perspective as well. Maybe he still just wants to tell his story and doesn't care who he casts. That would be great. But that's not realistic. I mean, none of this was ever realistic. Release the Snyder Cut was never realistic, and it happened. So, like, stranger things have happened. I want to see this story play out, but I don't want to see Ezra Miller back as the Flash, and I don't want to see Amber Heard back as Mira. And even if Zack Snyder completely abstains from any controversy, just isn't interested in hearing any of it, which is perfectly respectable, that would still be... it would draw a major target on his head. It would throw away a lot of the goodwill. The reality is, like, Warner Brothers' core universe is probably floundering at this point, or at least in panic mode. I mean, it always has been, but it's still definitely in panic mode right now, with the Ezra Miller situation going on, and of course, with Amber Heard. And the thing with Ezra Miller is that's not even a side character. Like, Mira was kind of more like a side character, where the Flash is like, this is the character that they're rebooting the universe with at the forefront. Also, I have got my issues with Gal Gadot, but at the end of the day, that comes down to more of a personal disagreement, and that's regarding the whole Israel versus Palestine thing. I can acknowledge that there are definitely some perspectives involved in that, and I can acknowledge that the way one is educated around that situation can have a major impact on that, you know? While I still don't really approve of her views regarding the Israel versus Palestine conflict, at the end of the day, you know, we're both educated differently, we both have very different perspectives on it. So I suppose it would be a bit silly to gun for one's job based on their opinions there, even if said opinions do have some pretty horrible implications. I mean, I would also say, how realistic is it that Zack Snyder would even want to return to Warner Brothers? But the fact is, he was the one that presented the Snyder Cut to them, and he's also, you know, on his Vero, he said that he's more than willing to come back and that fans shouldn't give up all hope on the SnyderVerse being restored, or at least, you know, a sequel going on. I think at this point, though, it's more realistic to expect that maybe Zack Snyder might direct a DC film in the future, but it won't necessarily be attached to the SnyderVerse that we know. Zack Snyder is clearly a good sport about all this, and listen, I still would love to hope that there's, you know, a chance for the SnyderVerse to return with a recast Barry Allen and a recast Mira. But at the end of the day, the SnyderVerse is one of the strangest anomalies in, like, modern cinematic history. This thing that's just been on the cusp of survival for just ages now. And at this point, you know, I would just happily settle for having Henry Cavill back as Superman. Just another Henry Cavill Superman film. I'd love it if Zack Snyder could return to direct, but I think Henry Cavill back as Superman is just the fundamental. That's the minimum I'm asking for, is Henry Cavill to return as Superman, or at least have a Superman. And I don't mean like the J.J. Abrams Superman, where they're doing more of a champion of the people kind of thing, and he's not really going to have superpowers, and it's more like an Elseworld sort of story. And I know that they're going for the whole he's a black Superman, but that doesn't really concern me that much overall, so long as we are at least getting some Val Zod representation, which we are with the Michael B. Jordan series coming to HBO Max. At least to my knowledge anyway. At this point, I think the best course of action is to sort of, I guess, have films like The Batman, Joker, things that aren't necessarily connected and are just prioritizing being good films, and then maybe revisit the idea of a connected universe later down the line, likely with a new cast and a new vision. I'm not going to pretend that the current DC Extended Universe idea doesn't have potential, and I'm not going to pretend that the SnyderVerse didn't have potential either. Lord knows I believe in that universe. But it's quite clear that neither side of the DC fandom is going to be getting what they want out of this situation. And even if we get the SnyderVerse back, it's not exactly going to be as Zack Snyder intended it, and I don't think it's going to play out how we expect. And if it does play out exactly how Zack Snyder wanted it, it's going to be a little troublesome, because obviously you're going to have Ezra Miller and Amber Heard in there, and like, even as a diehard Snyder fan, man, I don't think I can justify them returning. There's obviously been a lot of suggestions for like Emilia Clarke to take over Amber Heard, and I think that's a good choice. For the Flash, I think Ben Feldman would be a good choice, because I think he can play that DCEU Flash, that quirky Barry Allen, that Ezra Miller style of the Flash. But I think he could also bring a little much-needed maturity to the role as well. He's of a similar overall ilk, and I would like to see him get a big movie-starring role. He's probably best known for his role in Superstore as Jonah, the main character, and Superstore's a great show, but I would love to see him in this big household name production. Also, he represents us short kings, so, you know, I could totally vibe with that. I'm not saying that the restoration of the SnyderVerse is a completely impossible thing. Very unlikely, as it's always been. But While it is becoming increasingly less likely with more of the actors either departing projects or just proving to be kind of nasty people, I still think there is some possibility for like a partially recasted SnyderVerse. But you gotta think, like, when you recast these major roles, you're not just recasting the roles. Like, it's not just that these actors are going to feel different to the audience and play the roles a little different or look different. These are people that Zack Snyder had close working relationships with. So the entire experience of working on that project is going to be different. The question is Zack Snyder going to want to do that? Time will tell, but for now, I think it's time to just enjoy what we have. And guys, things that are hurting our credibility as Snyder fans are those of us that feel the need to constantly drag people like James Gunn, or Matt Reeves, or Patty Jenkins. These are all filmmakers, and filmmakers tend to have a sense of mutual respect for one another. Zack Snyder's demonstrated this. Even if you're not fond of their work, you don't need to completely drag them through the mud. This is ridiculous. I don't want to have to keep having this conversation with new people where I have to say, oh, I'm a Snyder fan, but I'm not one of the people that hates absolutely every other DC project that's coming about. Nah, projects like Peacemaker, The Suicide Squad, The Batman, they're fantastic projects, and you're never going to convince me otherwise. And if you're trying to make cases that these are objectively bad projects or whatever, you're just going to look like an idiot. It's time to change tact. The SnyderVerse fanbase shouldn't be the punching bag of the DC universe. So let's stop being clowns and asking for the ridicule that we're getting, and just make compelling, well-reasoned arguments for the SnyderVerse. But at this point, we're going to need another miracle. So what do you guys think? If you enjoyed this video and you want to support more like it, be sure to hit that big, beautiful subscribe button. And of course, in the description below are links to different social media feeds, including the Patreon. If you're feeling extra generous, like the following people, who are Marcus Ward, Sirius the Skeptic, Biotinarts, Mr. SP, David 20 Covers, Sergio, John Comey, Shodin, George is Lost, Legendary Ray Ray, Cheesemaster769, Adam Myers, and Fayalan Schwarzenkraut. Thank you guys, you are the best of the best, but as for the rest of you, thank you so much for watching, guys, and have a great day.
Bucky.